So today, we're not just going to talk about two of the biggest names in physics. Nope, we're going to dive into something, well, a little deeper. How science and scientific truth actually change over time. It's a story most of us think we know, but trust me, the reality is so much more interesting. And this line right here, this is the perfect place to start. It just gets to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? As humans, we love simple, epic stories. Tales of heroes and villains, of what's right and what's wrong. And the story of Newton versus Einstein? Oh yeah, that's one of the biggest science myths of them all. I'm sure you've heard the popular version, right? It's that classic tale of a dramatic showdown. It's clean, it's simple, and it fits so neatly into our textbooks and how we like to think about history, just one big leap after another. In this story, Newton is kind of like the old king, right? The god of this perfect, predictable clockwork universe where everything just ticks along perfectly. And then, bam, along comes this rebel genius, Einstein, who just smashes that clock to pieces and builds this bizarre, fantastical new universe in its place. It's a great story, it's super memorable, but it's not really how science works at all. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do is tear down this idea of the lone genius. The whole concept that history is just this parade of brilliant individuals who single-handedly change the entire world on their own. What I love about this is the contrast. The myth is so simple, and then Einstein appears, like a miracle. But the reality? The reality is that an entire intellectual environment had to ripen first. Great ideas almost never, ever come out of a vacuum. Turns out, a lot of people were already noticing the same cracks in the old theories. Now, don't get me wrong, what Einstein did was incredibly daring, for sure. But his big move was a response to a problem the whole scientific community was already feeling, even if they couldn't put their finger on it. The world of physics was straining under the weight of new discoveries, and he was the one who finally figured out a path forward. All right, so let's tackle this second part of this big myth. This simple idea that Newton was wrong and Einstein was right. The truth, as it often is way more nuanced. And it all comes down to one single, super important word: context. And this is the question we really need to ask ourselves. Was Newton's physics actually incorrect? Or was it just an incredibly powerful tool that, well, had its limits? Thinking about it this way, it changes the entire game. So here's the big mental shift we need to make. A scientific theory isn't the truth with a capital T. It's a map. And what's a map? It's a brilliant simplification of reality, right? It's designed to be useful, to help us get around, but only within its specific territory. And this quote just nails it perfectly. Think about it. A map of New York City isn't wrong, but it's completely useless if you're trying to navigate the Atlantic Ocean. For centuries, we used Newton's map to do amazing things, send rockets to the moon, build our whole industrial world. It is an incredible map for the world of normal speeds and regular gravity. The map wasn't the problem. The problem was we suddenly discovered there was a whole ocean out there. So where did this ocean come from? Why did we need a new map? Well, the pressure to change didn't come from Einstein just wanting to be a rebel. It came from a deep, fundamental problem that the universe itself revealed through new experiments. Okay, here's the first piece of the puzzle. In Newton's world, a core idea is that all motion is relative. There's no absolute still or absolute moving. If you're on a train, are you moving or is the ground moving underneath you? It all just depends on your point of view. It feels totally intuitive, right? And then this bombshell drops thanks to James Clerk Maxwell's work. His equations showed something completely bizarre. The speed of light isn't relative at all. It's constant. It doesn't matter if you're flying towards a light beam at half its speed or standing still, you will always measure its speed to be the exact same number. You see the problem? These two ideas cannot both be true. Something had to give. So when a contradiction this huge shows up, what's the first human reaction? It's not to throw out the beautiful old theory we love. No way. It's to protect it. For years, physicists tried to patch Newton's model, add little fixes and extra rules to make it work with this weird new fact about light. But the more patches they added, the clunkier the old model got. It started to feel strained, and as the source says, just tired. And this is where the crisis leads us. It leads to Einstein and his profound choice. He didn't come in swinging a wrecking ball at Newton.
He just looked at this fundamental contradiction and asked a very brave question. If one of our basic assumptions about the universe has to go, which one is it going to be?
This lays out the choice so clearly. On one hand, you have our deepest, most basic intuition, that time is absolute, that there's a single, universal now that we all share. On the other hand, you have this hard experimental fact: the speed of light is constant. Einstein looked at these two ideas and realized you couldn't keep both. And he made the incredibly daring choice. He decided to keep the constant speed of light, and he sacrificed our shared idea of now. And that, right there, was the real earthquake. The thing Einstein really took from us wasn't just a set of physics equations. It was that shared universal feeling of now. He showed us that the idea that it's the same time for everyone, everywhere, at this very instant, was just an illusion. An illusion created by living our whole lives at very, very slow speeds. So what on earth does that mean? It means your now is personal. It's your own unique slice through the four-dimensional fabric of spacetime. My now is a totally different slice. The only reason it feels like we share one is because here on Earth, our speeds relative to each other are tiny. It's a deeply weird, deeply counterintuitive truth about reality itself. And that brings us to the final big thought here. This whole story about Newton and Einstein, it's not really just about physics, is it? It's a lesson in humility. It forces us to turn the question back on ourselves and ask, what ideas do we believe in today that feel as obvious and absolute as a universal now did a century ago? Which of our most fundamental truths are really just useful maps for our current world, just waiting for the day we discover the ocean? Yeah, this quote is everything. It really sets the stage. See, we have this idea that science is like a boxing match, right? A new theory comes in, knocks out the old one. Boom, done. But that's not really how it works. The real story, the much cooler story, is that it's not about proving someone wrong. It's about realizing the map you've been looking at, well, it was never the whole world. It was just one corner of it.
So, okay, where does this big map expansion even start? Well, it kicks off with an idea so big, so profound, it's hard to wrap your head around. The idea that space and time aren't separate things. This was like the first major crack in the wall of what everyone thought was just, obvious reality.
And what's really fascinating and kind of funny is that this huge idea didn't even come from Einstein at first. Nope. It came from his old professor, a guy named Hermann Minkowski. He's the one who stood up and said, hey, what if the real thing, the fundamental reality, isn't space and time, but this single four-dimensional fabric we'll call spacetime? And our own personal experience of right here, right now, that's just our unique little slice of the whole thing.
But you gotta love this part, because it makes these guys feel so much more real.
At first, Einstein, he hated it. He basically thought it was just fancy math getting in the way of real physics. Just some superfluous learnedness, as he put it. He actually pushed back against the very idea that would become the foundation for his masterpiece. And that, right there, is the lesson. Being a genius isn't about being right all the time. It's about being honest enough with yourself to admit when you were wrong, to change your mind when a better framework comes along. And that's exactly what Einstein did. He eventually saw that space-time wasn't just decoration, it was the key that would let him unlock an even bigger, even more fundamental mystery. Okay, so if space-time was the first big bombshell, the next one, well, this one rewrites the entire playbook of the universe. We're about to go from thinking of gravity as just some force to seeing it as the actual geometry of reality. This comparison just lays it out so perfectly. For hundreds of years, thanks to Newton, we pictured the universe like a big flat stage, unchanging. And gravity was an actor on that stage, pulling things around. But Einstein's mind-blowing idea was, wait a minute, what if there is no actor? What if the stage itself is flexible? What if heavy things like planets and stars actually bend and curve the stage? And that curvature, that's what gravity is. I mean, how amazing is that? It's so elegant. That feeling of being pulled down to Earth, it's not a pull at all. You're just moving along the straightest possible line in a universe that's been curved by the Earth's mass. The force we feel is basically an illusion. It's just geometry in action. Wow. So does this mean Newton was wrong? No, absolutely not. And this is the whole point of our story today. Newton's laws are perfect for what they describe, our everyday world where gravity isn't too extreme and things aren't moving at the speed of light.
See, Einstein didn't destroy Newton's ideas. He just drew a much, much bigger circle around them. Newton's truth is still true. It's just a special case inside a much bigger, grander truth.
And this leads us to something really cool about how ideas and knowledge actually grow. It's not just about some lone genius having a eureka moment in a lab. It's about how truly great ideas can take on a life of their own, becoming way bigger than even the person who first thought of them. I just love this phrase, great equations are often smarter than their creators. Think about that. When someone creates a really powerful new framework, like Einstein did with his equations for general relativity, those equations hold secrets. They predict things that the creator themselves didn't even see coming. It's like the idea itself has a hidden potential, just waiting for other people to come along and unlock it.
And this is pretty much how it works. It's not a sprint. It's a relay race across generations. One person, our Einstein, runs an incredible leg of the race and hands off the baton. Then a whole new team of scientists takes that baton and runs with it for decades. They're the ones who test the limits, who find all the weird and wonderful things the equations predict, like black holes or ripples in spacetime, things Einstein himself was skeptical about. It just goes to show you, scientific knowledge isn't a single person's achievement. It's a collective flow.
Okay, let's wrap this all up and bring it home. What can we learn from this whole story about physics and Einstein? What's the real lesson here about truth? I think it boils down to a really powerful dose of intellectual humility. The first big thing to get is this. Science is not a war. We love to imagine it that way, right? A battle of right versus wrong, with clear winners and losers. But that's mostly just a story we tell. The reality is way more subtle and, honestly, a lot more beautiful. So if it's not a war, what is it? It's an expansion of context. That's it. That's the engine of progress. You're not trying to prove the old map is wrong. You're just discovering that the map only shows one country, not the whole planet. You're drawing a bigger circle. And you see this pattern again and again. Step 1. Something seems completely, 100% true, obvious even, like gravity pulls things down. Step 2, you start finding weird little exceptions, little cracks at the edges of that truth. Step 3, those cracks force you to find a bigger context, a new framework. And finally, step 4, the old obvious truth doesn't disappear. It just gets reframed as a special case inside a much bigger, more complete picture. So I want to leave you with this question. Forget about physics for a second. Think about your own life. What are the things you just know are true? The obvious facts about your job, about the people in your life, about yourself. How many of those things are only obvious because you haven't stepped outside of their limited domain? What would happen if you did? That, to me, is the ultimate lesson from Einstein. The bravest thing you can do isn't finding a new answer. It's questioning the stage the whole play is set on.